All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And this is going to be a response to the video that was done this morning by the elder apostle Orion Lob, dealing with America's destruction, Ezekiel 38. As you can see, the title, The Great Debaters Should Know Better Than That. And pretty much, as you can see in the thumbnail or even on the screen, as the elder was going into it, you had the brother Hassad, basically was on a comment board, and he was asking certain questions concerning certain precepts in here dealing with the timeline of America's destruction, the elect being delivered, and then the events that take place in Ezekiel 38 and 39, dealing with Russia, all right, which is referred to here as Gog, coming up against the land of Israel. Okay, and so through the Spirit, the elder covered it, but the Spirit was on me anyway. So, Lord willing, this would be edifying to the elect as well. Now, the first thing, which like the elder was pointing out, that I wanted to mention, and what I did was I marked down the timestamps where the brother left these comments so that we could go into it. So the first one here at 6 minutes and 49 seconds, he asks, so if the elect are delivered out of America when it's destroyed and then go to the land to be invaded by Gog, how is Gog not in a rulership as short as it is? And the first point is, when the elect are delivered and they go back to the land of Israel, they will not be invaded by Gog. Okay. And when we read in Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, as well as Revelation, the 20th chapter, I believe from the 7th verse down, when it talks about Gog coming against the land of Israel, right, and basically, taking over, which we're going to cover in Ezekiel 38, that is not after the elect are in the land. So at the point where Ezekiel 38 is taking place, that's not going to be after we've been delivered from America and then the Lord has put us back in the land of Israel, and then Russia is going to come in there and fulfill what's written in Ezekiel 38. The state that Israel is going to be in Ezekiel 38 is the state that you pretty much see today, where you have Amalekites in the land, right? You got really, if we're dealing with the land of Palestine, right, you got some Ishmaelites, Elamites, and you also have even some Israelites that are there. Okay, just like it is today. Because when Russia comes against the land of Israel in Ezekiel 38, that's going to be during the time of World War III. Okay, it's not going to be after the elect have been delivered and then taken to the land, and then that happens. Okay, so Gog is not going to invade the land when the elect are in there. Okay, by the time the Lord takes the elect back to the land of Israel, all these nations are going to be pretty much down. Because when Yahweh Shai comes back and he delivers the elect, after some time, when the elect come back down, we're going to go over, Lord willing, we be of that number, and we're going to subject all these nations, okay, those that are still left, okay, under the rulership of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahweh Shai. So let's actually go into a few of these precepts and highlight this point right here. Now, also keep in mind, right, when you go to 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter, which is a vision that Ezra received of this very time of Yahweh Shai's return, he mentions, right, which we will read, that you're going to have the nations, right, the armies from the four winds of heaven, from all four quarters, come together against Yahweh Shai. And as you read on down in that chapter, it tells you that these nations are going to leave off from fighting one another, and then they're all going to come together against Yahweh Shai, and he's going to take them down. Okay, so Russia is going to be included in those nations, because when these nations go to war with each other, when World War III pops off, Russia is going to be in there. And as in the midst of World War III, as they're going, against each other and things start going nuclear, then the missiles start flying. Yahushua is going to make his return and deliver his elect. But guess what? Upon his return, Russia's not going to take a back seat. Russia, along with the remaining nations and their armies, are going to come together to fight against Yahushua, and he's going to subject them all. He's going to put them all down. So there's going to be no point in time after Yahushua's return. Remember, the elect's deliverance is also synonymous with Yahushua's return. So when the elect are delivered, Yahushua is going to be here. And also when Yahushua is here, all these other nations are going to be put down. There's not going to be one nation left in some form of power when Yahushua returns. That's the whole point of the Lord telling him to sit here until he makes his enemies his footstool. So all these nations are the enemies of the Lord. So when Yahushua returns, it wouldn't even make sense for him, with all his power and glory and might, to allow Gog to being Edomites, right, majority of them, to rule even forever, however long it is, however short it is, while he's here. He's here to subject the whole earth under his authority. Okay, so let's go to let's actually start here in Revelation chapter 20. And as the elder apostle was going into in the book of Revelation, the 20th chapter, when you read it, you have to jump, right? When you read from the first 3 verses, you jump down to the 7th verse. That's the actual chronological order of the verse. So it makes sense, because the time period in which the apostle John has recorded here goes from the 1st verse to the 3rd verse and jumps to the 7th verse. That's how if you want to read it in accordance with the same time period. All right, so when you actually jump down to the 7th verse, right, and you read from here, it talks about when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison. And that Satan is referring to the Edomites, okay, after the Dark Ages, when they came back up into power during what they call the Renaissance period, right? Now, verse 8, it says, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the 4 quarters of the earth. And Esau, Edom did that, okay? And then it talks here about Gog and Magog, which really is Gog, right? Like the elder went into. Magog is just the land. But Gog, which is referring to Russia, to gather them to battle. And which battle is this? This is going to be the battle or the war of Armageddon, World War III. The number of whom is as the sand of the sea, meaning their army is going to be very large. Verse 9, and they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about, which this is really talking about the land of Israel, because the saints are Israelites. Okay, so when they compass, meaning to basically to surround, to come against the land of Israel round about, and the beloved city, right, Jerusalem, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. Now, this verse here is in line with Ezekiel 38. Ezekiel 38 expounds a bit more on it as to who it is they're going to come with, what it is they're going to do. That's all in Ezekiel 38. But here in verse 9, when Gog goes to compass the camp of the saints about and the beloved city, this is not after the elect have been delivered and taken to that land, and then God comes and does this. This is going to be happening in what we call World War III. Okay, because when Russia comes against Israel, it's not going to be necessarily them coming against the elect of the Lord's chosen. They're going to be coming against the Amalekites. Okay, the state of Israel that you know today, where Amalek is out here doing all their fuck shit and all that. Okay, they're the ones that are going to be, as we read in I think it's Jeremiah, the least of the flock, drawing them out. So now let's go to the book of Ezekiel 38. And I'm just going to jump through a few verses here because there's breakdowns on the whole chapter. So, we should really be familiar with what Ezekiel 38 is talking about. But when you read in Ezekiel the 38th chapter, right, the Lord talks about how he's going to turn Russia, right, put hooks into their mouth and basically turn them back into a warlike, that warlike mindset, which you can see going on right now. But it also talks about these other nations, right, that are going to be banded or sided with Russia, and how Russia is going to come with them. Okay, so it mentions, Persia, Ethiopia, Libya, right? So these African nations here, Persia, which are the Iranians, all of them with shield and helmet, meaning they're prepared for war. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarma of the north quarters, and all his bands, meaning their armies, and many people with thee. So all these nations here that are listed are going to be they're going to be sided with Russia. And why is that? That's going to be because of this war. Because when you have wars, you have different nations and they take sides. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, which we just read some of the nations here that make up that company, and be thou a guard unto them. Because Russia is like the biggest superpower out of all of them, right? Verse 8, after many days thou shalt be visited, in the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword. And that's talking about now. Okay. Now, when the Lord said he was going to visit them, meaning he was going to revive that spirit in them and basically call them up to fulfill prophecy. So in the latter years, because at the time where Ezekiel actually saw this, that was a long, long time before this prophecy would take place. That's why he mentions the latter years, which are now. Thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword. The land brought back from the sword is the land of Israel. Okay. And is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel. So it tells you where this land is, which have been always waste because of all the different, like the sieges and the destruction and the even, semi-wars that have taken place, but is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. So that land in the state that it is in today, you can see that at least, well, now they're starting to get more into, into more chaos, right, and more turmoil. But for a period of time, when you had primarily Amalek in there, they were sort of like guarded, right? Anybody that tried to come against them, they were safe. Anybody that tried to come against them would be demonized. You'd immediately be ostracized. Okay. So in Ezekiel 38:8, here it's a prophecy about Russia coming against the land of Israel. But remember, Russia at this point in time also is going to be allied or accompanied with Turkey and Iran and Libya and these other nations as well. That's going to take place during the Third World War. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land. Thou and all thy bands, right? And many people with thee. So when Russia comes against Israel, they're going to have allies, because World War III is not going to be just Russia versus Israel, right? The U.S. is going to be involved, because when you read in Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, it also talks about Russia coming against the U.S., which is Babylon or America. Now, let me jump down a bit to, let's see, I want to come down to verse 16. All right. And actually, let me start at 15. It says, and thou shalt come from thy place out of the north parts, thou and many people with thee, all of them riding upon horses, a great company and a mighty army. And thou shalt come up against my people of Israel. And I think this part in here, this verse can also trip people up, because you see it says my people of Israel. And so you're thinking this is referring to, like the true Israelites. Right now, I don't know if this is exactly what he is thinking, but I'm just, throwing this out there, right, as to how this could also be a factor that could trip up somebody reading this verse to think, well, it says that they're going to come up against my people of Israel. Why would the Lord call heathens or whatnot in the land his people when they are not? But when you read this, based on even the context of the chapter, it's a continuation of what we just read in the verses above. So really, when the Lord says, thou shalt come up against my people of Israel, primarily he's referring to them coming up against the land of Israel, though you have Israelites today that are in that land as well. But this is not Russia coming up against the nation of Israel collectively after we have been delivered and taken into that land. Okay, that's not when this prophecy is taking place. It says here, as a cloud to cover the land, it shall be in the latter days, and I will bring thee against my land, that the heathen may know, or may know me, when I am sanctified in thee, O Gog, before their eyes. So the Most High is going to use Russia to come against not just them, obviously, but to play a major role in World War III. But Russia will come against the U.S. They're going to shoot missiles here. But guess what? They're also going to come against the land of Israel. And the Lord is going to use them to do that, along with the other nations. So this is going to be a full war. And in the midst of this war, we know two primary places that will be destroyed because of the nuclear missiles flying are America and the land of Israel. Of course, other places will be hit, but two primary places we know that will be dissolved are America, Babylon, and the land of Israel. Okay. And it is during this, and guess who's going to be a culprit of that? Russia is going to be one of the main players, as we just read here. So when Yahushua returns to deliver his elect who are in the various regions, primarily America, so they don't get dissolved with that land, Yahushua is going to deliver them. Do you think he's going to allow Russia to being that they are a part of the culprit of those who are shooting missiles on this place, to just roam for X amount of time? No. So in the sense, right, going back to the question, right, that Hassad asked here, in the sense of, as it says here, how is Gog not in a rulership as short as it is? In the sense of a rulership, Gog will never have a rulership from this time going forward. Now, you may think that, okay, they might be playing a major role in terms of, a superpower during the war. Yeah, that makes sense. But in terms of a rulership, when you think of a rulership, you think of one nation in power and everybody else subject onto them having the jurisdiction, the authority, right, the reign, okay, over pretty much the world. And that's not going to happen. That there's no space for that in prophecy concerning, like, from this time on. The next rulership after this time period is going to be the kingdom of Israel. And Second Ezra, the 9th chapter, tells you that, right? Esau is the end of the world, the end of this age, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. That Esau is not talking about Russia either. Okay, it's talking about the beast. So now, before I go to the next precepts, I want to skip to the next part here. The next timestamp, I think, was 14 minutes. There we go. So as the elder continues to explain, Hassad asked another question, right? So he says, so elder, if America is destroyed at the same time the elect get delivered, then the elect go back to the land. When does Ezekiel 38 and 39 take place? Well, keep in mind, America is not, it's not like we're going to wake up one day, right, and then Russia is going to shoot missiles and America is destroyed. No, there's going to be a buildup, right? And the world is going to be at war. And you're going to have different nations on different sides. You're going to have Turkey on the side of Russia. You're going to have China. You're going to have North Korea. You're going to have Iran and Libya and all these nations that we just read about. And then you're going to have on another side, Israel and the U.S. And for a period of time, even some of the U.S.'s allies, be it some countries in NATO and the EU, which eventually we know they'll turn on the U.S. as well, according to Revelation 17. But that's basically how, if you look at even World War I and World War II, that's how it's set up. You have nations that come against each other. One nation gets into it with another, then it drags in another, then it drags in another, and then they go back and forth, and eventually it starts to escalate. And as it escalates, that's when you're going to have the nuclear missiles flying. And the result of the nuclear missiles flying is going to be America being destroyed. But during that whole time period, the focus is not going to be on just America. Israel is also going to be at war. And Ezekiel 38 is going to be happening at that time. So as the war is escalating and things are building up and nations are going one against another, Russia is going to be going against Israel at that time as well. as well as coming against the U.S., because the U.S. is going to go to Israel's defense. So Ezekiel 38, which goes into that war, and 39 really goes into like what ends up happening after that war, right? The remains and the people being of continual employment to clean up the land and so on and so forth, right? But it's not going to be an isolated thing of like America's destroyed, the elect are delivered, and then Ezekiel 38 has to take place. Ezekiel 38, America's destruction, these are all going to be happening during the war. Okay. So let's go real quick to first the book of Isaiah 14 and then second Ezra 13, because keep in mind, right, that well, I mentioned the two places that are primarily going to be destroyed are America and Israel. Now, Israel is actually going to be, that land is going to be melted as well. And when you go to Isaiah 14, getting to the latter part, it speaks about that, right? It says judgment on Philistia. So Isaiah 14 and 29, rejoice not thou, whole Palestina. So now where is Palestina? That's the land of Palestine today. Okay. And it says here, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken, because when you read up above, it talks about Esau being taken down. And then Isaiah is prophesying concerning, you know, those in the land, saying, don't be happy just because him who was on top of you oppressing you is taken down, because guess what? You're also about to get that work. Right. So it says, for out of the serpent's root shall come forth a cockatrice, and his fruit shall be a fiery flying serpent. And this is a metaphorical way of referring to the nuclear missiles. Okay. So the serpent's root, or like the hole, right? You have certain snakes that dwell in, like, you know, they go on the ground and sometimes they come out of that hole. And that's to be synonymous with the missiles coming out of the silos. Right. It says, and his fruit shall be a fiery flying serpent, which are the nuclear missiles. Verse 30, and the firstborn of the poor shall feed, and the needy shall lie down in safety, and I will kill thy root with famine, and he shall slay thy remnant. Now the main point here in verse 31, how, O gate, cry, O city, thou whole Palestina art dissolved. And then you think of what Second Peter, I believe it's 3 and 8, about the you know, the earth, right, the land being dissolved by way of those nuclear missiles, because that's what's going to cause that land to be dissolved. For there shall come from the north a smoke, and none shall be alone in his appointed times. Okay, so as we were reading in Ezekiel 38 and other precepts, you're going to have also that land of Israel being destroyed so it can be cleansed. Okay, and Russia is going to play a role in that. And after all of that is done, that's when the Lord is going to bring us back there. Because when you read, forget what chapter it is in the book of Ezekiel, but it talks about how the Lord delivers his elect. But then it says how he's going to gather us and take us to the wilderness and then purge out the rebels. Okay, so it's not as though the second Yahweh, like after Yahweh delivers the elect, then immediately he just takes us straight to the land. No, there's still going to be, pursuant to Revelation, I believe 6 or 8, those that repented not of their works. Right, Luke 17, was it 17 or 19? It talks about Yahweh said, those mine enemies that would not that I should reign over them, bring them hither and slay them before me. So we're going to have a job to do upon Yahweh's return. And that leads me into 2 Ezra 13, which I'm going to pull up right here, that upon his return, that's really when the ultimate war begins. So you're going to have World War III, but then it's going to escalate into the true war, which is going to be one realm against another. And guess what? In that war, Russia is going to play a role. And Russia, along with the remaining nations, are going to be destroyed. In this, when I say destroyed, I mean they're going to be taken down and subjected. And the only one that's going to be left on top is going to be Yahushua. That's why he is referred to as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. That's why he had many crowns upon his head. Because when Yahushua comes back, his first order of business, along with delivering the elect, is to take down all these other powers, all these other nations. And there's going to be no one left after this war is complete that's going to be a power save Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. So let's get that here in 2 Ezra chapter 13. And I'm going to start here at verse 3. It says, "And I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven," which is Yahushai. "And when he turned his countenance to look, all the things trembled that were seen under him." Why under him? Because whoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice, like as the earth faileth when it feeleth the fire. And this is talking about when he let out those lasers from his chariot. Verse 5, "After this I beheld." So Ezra is seeing the return of the Lord, right? And then he says here, he beheld, he saw, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. So who are these men out of number that came from the four winds of heaven, north, east, south, west, to come in and try and fight against the Lord? Well, it ain't going to be farmers. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be your grocery store workers. It's going to be the militaries. And it's not just America's military, because it says here that they come from the four winds of the heaven. So that's going to include the militaries of these other nations as well. And on top of that, Revelation, the 12th chapter, even goes into that, the war in heaven. Okay. So continuing here, it says, let me actually jump down and see, just hit the main point. So they come against Yahushua here. And when you jump down, verse 9, it says, "And lo," and actually really 8, "And after this I beheld, and lo, as all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst fight. And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war. But only I saw that he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests." And as you read on, it'll tell you what that mixture ended up doing to these people. So now, lastly, I want to jump down and let's identify who are these multitudes from the four winds of heaven that came to subdue Yahushai. Let's jump down. Let's see. There we go. Let me actually pull it up in another tab. Specifically, I want the part that mentions they're going to leave off from fighting one another. You know what? Let's keep reading. Maybe I'll find it in here. So this is 2nd Ezra 13 and 29. Behold, the days come when the Most High will begin to deliver them that are upon the earth, right? And ultimately, that's going to be when Yahushua makes his return, and those that are going to be delivered are the elect. So we know that this is around that same time period. So what else is going to happen at that time? "And he shall come to the astonishment, the surprise of them that dwell on the earth. And one shall undertake to fight against another, one city against another, one place against another," because you're going to have wars on different levels, right? Civil wars, and then regional wars, global wars, so on and so forth. "One people against another, and one realm against another." So the war, you're going to have nations against each other, but eventually it's going to turn into the heavenly realm and the heavenly host with Yahushai against the armies of the world. Okay, now let's keep on going. Let's actually jump down a little bit and see. Yep, it says here. There you go. This is the verse I'm looking for. Verse 32, "And the time shall be." Oh, 1 second. It says here, "And the time shall be when these things shall come to pass, and the signs shall happen which I shewed thee before. And then shall my son be declared, whom thou sawest as a man ascending. And when all the people hear his voice, every man shall in their own land leave the battle they have one against another." So what are some examples of that battle? Well, we just described that the nations being at war with each other. We know that's going to happen at the return of Yahushua, because it says he's going to deliver his elect. So that means, what is he going to deliver them from? The nuclear missiles. Who's going to shoot the nuclear missiles? The nations that are going to be at war with each other. And that includes Russia and the US and Israel. So when Yahushua returns, we know that World War III is already going to be going on. So it says here, when they hear his voice, pretty much when they're made aware of the return of the Lord, they're going to leave the battle they have one against another. They're going to stop fighting with each other, because now they're going to have a common enemy. And an innumerable multitude shall be gathered together. That is what Ezra saw in the beginning of the chapter that he mentioned from the four winds of heaven. So now they're going to come together. It says, as thou sawest them, right? Like we read up above, willing to come and to overcome him by fighting. Who is that him? Yahushua. So guess what? That innumerable, that innumerable multitude is going to include Russia. And what do you think is going to happen if Russia joins World War III, and in the midst of World War III, Yahushua comes back? Slaki, give me 1 second. Slaki. So back to where I was. So Russia joins World War III. In the midst of World War III, Yahushua makes his return, and he delivers his elect, because in the midst of World War III, America is destroyed. But upon Yahushua's return, Russia, along with the remaining nations, now have to fight against Yahushua. And what do we think happens when they fight against Yahushua? They're going to be taken down. So there's no point in there where they're able to have a rulership, because from where we are now to World War III starting, we see the state that Russia is in now. They join World War III, and in the midst of World War III, then they have to fight against Yahushua. And when they fight against the Yahushua, they take a L. And then that's it. They're done. They're subjected. They're gone. They know none of them are ever coming back up again. So there's no point in there where Russia is going to be able to have some form of a rulership, though they are going to be like one of the main countries and play a key role in the destruction of America, but they're not going to become the next superpower. They're not going to have a chance to do that, because in the midst of them thinking that, Yahushua is going to make his return, and we know what he's going to do when he comes back. And let me actually wrap it up with verse 35. But he shall stand upon the top of Mount Zion. Okay, and that's pretty much it on that. Not gonna drag it out, but Lord willing, that was edifying, and clear to the elect. And so, in closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Recha Kodash. And hey, Lord willing, the brother sees it. Lord willing, I mean, who knows? Maybe the Spirit of the Lord will continue, work with him, and he might have some back and forth. But if he be of the elect, then the Lord will have mercy at the end of the day. So Lord, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Recha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.